Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to create a React app using TypeScript. It's going to be a Stopwatch application, and I know it's going to be overkill to use TypeScript, but I really want to make this video for people that are just getting into TypeScript and kind of just diving into it. So without further ado, we are going to open up Visual Studio Code and get started. Alright, I have VS Code open here. And if you guys don't have Node.js installed already, you'll want to go here and download it, whether you have Windows or Mac, and so that way we can get React installed. Okay, so in VS Code, I have my terminal open, and we are going to just create our React app with the TypeScript template within this directory. So create React app. I'm going to do dot so that we can stay in the, so it'll create the React app in the current project directory. And then we're going to do dash dash template TypeScript. So this will take a few minutes to install. React is installed with the TypeScript template. So now we can go ahead and get started. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is in the source directory, I'm going to just create a new folder with called components, something that I always like to do. And we're going to have two folders in here. We're going to have a main folder, and we're going to have a controls folder. Okay, and then in our main folder, we're just going to have a main.tsx and a main.css. And we're going to do the same thing in the controls. We're going to call it controls.tsx and then a controls.css. Alright guys, so in our app we have, I'm going to remove this boilerplate code, and in the CSS I'm also going to get rid of all of this. Okay, we're actually not going to be using that CSS file, so I'm just going to remove that, and I'm going to get rid of the logo. Okay, so we can keep this app component or we can delete it, doesn't matter. So I'm just going to, let's have the browser open side by side, and let's get this going. Okay, so in order to start the server, we need to do npm start. Okay, it's going to start the server, and I'm going to do this. Okay. Alright, so in our app, I'm going to go ahead and delete the app. We're going to use our main as our app. And I'm going to delete the CSS file. Okay, so now in our index.tsx, we need to delete this line and delete this line. And we're going to import our own component that we created, which is main. So I'm going to say import main components main. Okay, and then I'm just going to call main here. And of course that's not going to work. So we need to go into our main and import React here. Okay, I'm going to create a function called main. I'm going to export this. Alright, and then we'll just return, let's do a section. Alright, so I'm going to open up localhost. So, okay, something's already running on port 3000, so I'm just going to go ahead and stop that. Okay, I'm going to run that command again. Alright, so I'm getting some compile error. I'm going to also import React in here so we don't get this. And I'm going to create a function called controls. I'm going to export this. And then I'm just going to do a return. And we'll do another section here for now. Okay, so let's see, that should fix it. Alright guys, so in order to fix that compile error, I just stopped the server and ran it back again, and that fixed it. And one more thing I want to do here is in the HTML, we are going to change the title here to Stopwatch app. Alright, so now we can get on with this. I'm going to close out of the controls for now and just keep the main open. So in our main, we're going to apply some CSS here. So in the body, we're going to reset the margin to 0, and we're going to have a background color of 282 C34. Okay, and then we also need to import that. Okay, and there you go. So we got our body. All right, so now what we want is we're going to have this text here. So we're going to do this right in the main section itself. So in here, we're going to have 3 p tags. All right, if you do Shift Alt down, you can copy it 2 more times. All right, so in here, we're going to have a class name of timer text, and I'm going to copy that and paste it here and here. And for now, we're just going to leave this as 0. Okay, you can see it here. And also we want to center this vertically and horizontally. So what I want to do before I do that is I want to create some span tags for the colons. All right, so we're going to have colons in between the hour and the minute. All right, so let's clean it up with CSS here. So in order to get it vertically and horizontally centered, we're just going to do this right in the body itself. So we can do display flex. We're going to say flex direction height, column. And then we're going to set the height to 100 VH, vertical height. All right. I'm going to refresh this. All right. So now, in order to get it centered, we're going to do justify content center. And then we're going to align the items to be center. All right. So now we're going to want this to be horizontally, so it's displayed like this. So what I'm going to do is give this section a name of, let's do time container. Okay, so time container. First thing, so that we can see the text, I'm going to change the color to CCC. All right, and then I'm going to do display flex here, and it will be centered like that, which is good. I'm going to also add some letter spacing to 2 pixels. All right, so now we have the timer text. We're going to make the font way bigger. So we're going to do font size. Let's do 3 rem. I'm going to increase it to like 5. Yep. Okay, and by default, p tags also have margin, so we're going to get rid of that margin. All right, and also we want to give the same font size to the span. So, you know, instead of doing that individually to the p tag and the span tag, we can just give a font size here, 5 rem, and it should apply to both. So we don't need that. And in the span tag, we want to kind of move these up a little. So I'm going to say time container span position relative, and I'm going to say bottom. Let's do 5 pixels so it looks a little bit more centered. There we go. And I think those colons look a little bit too big, so I'm going to put this back in its own class here, and I'm going to make this slightly smaller to 4. Let's do that. All right, and the bottom needs to be changed now. So I'm going to try removing this and let's see how that looks. So now instead of bottom, we need to do top, and I'm going to do 5 pixels. Yep, that looks good to me. All right, so that's it for showing the timer. The 0, 0, we're going to create a function so that we can show that based on the seconds. All right, and I'll show you that just a second. We're going to bring in use state here so we can keep track of the timer. So we're going to create a variable saying time in seconds, set time in seconds, and then the default is going to be 0. So now we get to use the fun part of TypeScript, and we can say this should be of type number always. All right, if it's not of type number, then it's going to throw an error. All right. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is I want to get the buttons below here. So the next thing we want to do is before we implement the button functionality, let's get these numbers displayed correctly based on the time that it's given. All right, so we're going to create a helper function. So I'm going to create a directory within the source called helper. And inside helper, we're going to create a TS file, TypeScript file, and we'll call that calculate timer.ts. Okay. And I'm going to rename this to be calculate as a uppercase C. Okay, so now in here, we're just going to have a function that will calculate the time. So calculate time based on the time that it's given, which should be time in seconds. All right, so here with TypeScript, we can say number, saying that we're only expecting a type of number. So, and then we can also say this function is returning a type number. All right. Okay, and then we're also going to export this. We're going to just say export default calculate timer. All right, so we're going to export the reference of that function. And what we're going to do is, okay, sorry guys, I misled you here. We're not going to just return a type of number. We're going to return an array with that is going to be a type of number. We're going to say return array. All right. So now in the function, we can actually do some calculation. All right. So now we already know that the time in seconds is going to be a type of number. So we don't have to do any if conditions like we would in regular JavaScript saying, is this a type of number? Otherwise, throw an error. It will already do that for us. All right. So now what we're going to do is create 3 variables here: hours, minutes, and seconds. Based on the time we're given in seconds, we're going to convert that to hour, minutes, seconds format. So we're expecting a number here. And what we're going to do to calculate this is use math.floor. And we're going to grab the time in seconds, divide that by 3600. All right. We're going to do the same thing here. Type number, math.floor. Except this time now we're going to do time in seconds minus, we're going to convert the hours to seconds. All right, so we can do that by multiplying it by 3600. All right, so time in seconds minus hours, which is converted to seconds, and we're going to divide that whole thing by 60. Okay, so let's see if that makes sense here. So first we want to do this. We want to put these between parentheses. So we want to do order of operations here. Do this calculation first and divide by 60. Okay. So, all right. I'm going to do this as well. You know, also being relatively new to TypeScript, I'm always checking to see the underline to make sure that there's no error being thrown. So yeah. I'm just something coming from developing JavaScript for many years. It's something that I'm getting used to as well. So now, in order to calculate seconds, we're going to say time in seconds minus hours times 3600. And let me explain this. So we're going to grab the entire time in seconds, subtract that by the hours, which is converted to seconds, and subtracted by the minutes converted to seconds. So we're going to do minutes times 60. Since there are 60 seconds in a minute and 3600 seconds in an hour. All right. So what we're going to do here is return an array of hours, minutes, and seconds. Simple enough. All right, so let's import that here. We're going to do import calculate timer from, we need to get out of this components directory to the helper to calculate timer. All right, so now that we have access to that, we're going to use the use effect hook. Let's grab that use effect. All right, and we're going to put a dependency here so that it only gets called when time in seconds is changed, which is going to be every second that it gets updated, right? So every time that gets updated, this hook will be called. In this hook, we're going to do calculate timer. We're going to call that and pass in time in seconds. All right, so we need to keep track of that array. So I'm going to create another use state here. I'm going to say timer array, set timer array. Okay, and this is going to be an array. Okay, and we're expecting this to be a type number inside the array. All right, so now what we can do is say let time array equal calculate timer that, and we can say that we're expecting this to be of type of array, which will be of type number. Okay. Okay, and then we can say set timer array and pass in time array. Now, if you want, you could just put this in here, but just for some clean code, to see some code readability, I left it separately. All right, guys. So now in here, we can say time array, and we can just access the first index. Okay, does it not like something? Timer array. Sorry about that. Okay, same thing in here. Timer array 1, and then timer array 2. Keeping the logic as minimal as possible in the HTML. Okay, got it. So I did something wrong here. It should be capital C. All right, guys, so in order to fix those compile errors that I was getting, I changed the file name to timer.ts, and I changed the path to timer. So it seems to be working correctly now. All right, so now we got our array populating our hour, minutes, seconds. So you can see there's a problem here that it's only showing 1 digit for each one, where we want to show 2. So we are going to have to handle this in the function itself. All right, so in the function, we are going to do some manipulation here. So we're going to say let hours, let's hours format equal to hours. So we want to say if hours is less than 10, all right, we'll do a ternary condition. If it's less than 10, we want to display a 0 in front. So we're going to use a template string. All right, and then we're going to say hours like that. Colon, we'll just display the hours because it'll be greater than 10 at that point. 10, it'll be equal to 10 or greater than 10. All right, so what we want to do is return that here, hours format. So I wanted to explain now, since we're returning an array of string, it's going to throw an error because it's expecting to return an array of numbers. So we can keep this. We need to add something else here. We're going to use this pipe symbol, which is a union. We're going to say also it can return a type string. Okay, so it can return a type string, and you know that causes us to fix it here as well. Okay, let's see. Timer array is also expecting here. So we have two other places that we need to change. So you can see how, so we had two other places that we need to change as well within the use state and then this variable. So TypeScript really helps us with making sure that the types are correct so that our application does not break. If, let's say you had it as originally a number, and then another developer comes in here and he doesn't realize that it's only expecting an array of numbers, and he returns a string as well. Well, the application would break, which is what we want. Okay, so now we're saying we want to expect, so the other developer would come in here and say, hey, I'm going to also accept this to be an array of number or string, which would fix it in this case, and which is totally acceptable to do. So we're going to do the same thing for minutes format. We're going to do minutes less than 10, template string, colon, minutes. Do 0, minutes. And then we'll do the same thing for seconds format, equal to seconds less than 10. Okay, colon, seconds. Perfect. So I'm going to copy this, replace it here. All right, guys. So now we should have it correctly displayed. So our function here will calculate the time in seconds, convert it to the exact format that we need it to. So we no longer need this anymore. We are completely done with it. All right, so what we need to do now is work on our buttons here in our controls component. Okay, so in our controls component, it's going to be a separate section. So I'm going to import that here, saying controls from controls. Okay, so controls will go in its own section, and we are going to pass down the prop, which will be set time in seconds. Okay, that's what's gonna drive our state change for the seconds. So we're gonna say set time in seconds equal to. All right, so now TypeScript is going to throw an error saying that it's not expecting this prop, right? So in here, it's going to be prop, okay? And it's also throwing an error here, not an error, it's throwing more like a warning here that it's declared, but its value, sorry, not that one. The props implicitly has an any type, okay? So we can go like this and say the props we're expecting are of type any. Okay, let's see what something I messed up here. Okay, got it. This cannot be outside of this section. That's like React 101. It needs to be encapsulated inside a HTML tag container. Okay, so in React with TypeScript, we can tell each variable within each thing that we pass in within the prop, we can say it needs to be of type this, like number, string, function. So I'm going to show you how to do that. We can do type prop or props. Okay. Oh, sorry. It should be set equal to an object. Okay. So first thing we're going to be expecting is set time in seconds. Okay. That's going to be the key. And what are we expecting of type to be? It's going to be a type of function. All right. So let's say we set this to number. If we come here and let's say we set this to props of, it's going to be set to a type of props. So it's going to throw an error saying this is not assignable to a number. This set state action, which is set time in seconds. But if we change this to function, it will not throw any errors, which is exactly what we want to do. This is a great way to control the type of what we're expecting within the props. All right, guys, so I'm going to have a button HTML tag. I'm going to do Shift Alt down, and that'll create more instances of the button. So we're going to do play, we'll do stop, and reset. Okay, and let's have a class name here of, let's do controls container. Okay, and I'm going to open up the CSS file, and we're going to give some styling to the buttons here. And also one more thing I realized is we cannot have the controls component inside this section, because this section is doing display flex, and it's going to do that alongside with the timer, which was not what we want to do. So I'm going to create a main HTML tag, which I actually intended to do. I just forgot in the beginning. Okay, so, all right, let's indent that. All right, everything looks good now. All right, so let's give some CSS styling to these buttons. So what we're going to do here is say controls container. So within controls container, I'm going to set a margin to 15 pixels to give some spacing in between and top and bottom. And to see this happen, let's import this as we go. Okay, and then we're going to get rid of the border. Give this a background color of E5AD 3D. Oh, sorry. This needs to be applied to the button itself, not the container. We are going to give some padding here of 3 pixels and 12 pixels. And then we're going to increase the font size to 1.3 rem. We are going to give this a font weight of 400, which doesn't actually change anything because I'm pretty sure that's the default. And we're going to set this cursor to pointer. So I'm going to get rid of this font weight because it's useless. So as you can see here, I'm going to just, yep, it's centered in between and looks good to me. So expand this code a little bit. All right, so let's work on the functionality. So I'm going to use some object destructuring, set time in seconds, and set that equal to prop. So we're going to need to have several function handlers with the onClick event. Okay, we're going to say handle play button. Okay, I'm going to copy this, and we're going to have a separate one for this one and a separate one for this one. So this will be handle stop button and handle reset. And also I'm going to bring in use state hook here to keep track of our state for we're going to be using set interval. So we need to keep track of the interval ID. So we're going to say interval ID, set interval ID, use state 0. And this we are expecting of type to be number. Okay. So let's define these functions. Const handle play button. We're not expecting anything there as a parameter. All right, guys, inside of handle play button, we're going to set interval. We're going to call set interval here. And then inside here, it's going to have a callback, which is going to be an arrow function. All right. And then we're going to tell it how often should it be called, which is going to be 1 second. Every second it's going to update. Okay, so in here we're going to say set time in seconds. In order to update this by 1 second at a time, we need to get the previous state. So we're going to say previous state arrow function, previous state plus 1. And simple as that. And we need to give a type here of number. Okay, let's see. Oh, and one thing is, since this needs to be wrapped in parentheses. Okay, so now we have the state being updated. Okay, but one thing we need to, the set interval function will return an interval ID. So we're going to just call this variable interval, and we'll get interval. So this interval is going to be of type any. And then we're going to set the interval ID to interval. Okay, so if you're wondering why it's of type any, if you set this to type number, which is what we actually get, well, TypeScript is going to throw some error here. And I try to look this up, and it looks like to be a TypeScript issue with the compiler. So setting it to type any will be just fine here. All right, so now, you know what? Let's just define these functions real fast. Okay, and let's define handle reset. Okay, so now if you hit the play button, we should update the timer, which is exactly what it's doing. Perfect. So you can see the interval ID is probably being set, and the best way to test that is to stop it. So if we click on the stop button, what do we want to do? Well, it's pretty simple. It's actually really easy for us. All we need to do is clear the interval by passing in the interval ID from state. All right, so if I hit play, let it go, and hit stop, it'll stop the interval. So what are we going to do with the reset? Well, we're going to do the same thing of clearing the interval ID, and we also are going to reset the time using the set time in seconds function. We're going to set that to 0, and that will be reset to 0. Okay, so I'm going to let it go for a little bit here. Okay, I'm going to stop it, and then I'm going to hit reset. Okay, perfect. This is exactly what we wanted to do. All right, guys, so we're going to test this timer now. So I'm going to hit play, let it go for a few seconds, hit stop, and reset. And if I hit play, and then if I just do reset, it should just stop and reset. And that's really it, guys. That's all there is to the Stopwatch app. And I wanted to give a brief introduction to TypeScript with React. All right, guys, that's it for me. I hope you guys learned something from this. And if you did, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.